You were introducing that song and it made me think of a song by this artist, Tracy Dawn. And she has a song called God in a Box. It's a rocking song. And I remember hearing it once and thinking, who is this woman and how do I get her to play at church? And so I reached out and I asked her and she was like, wait, what? No, it's perfect in alignment with what we teach at Centers for Spiritual Living, right? We don't put God in a box. I could put God in a box. I'll have to look that up and play it sometime for you guys. Well, welcome. Good morning. I'm happy to see you all. I promised you a couple weeks ago that I would talk about my experience at our Centers for Spiritual Living International Conference a couple weeks ago. Today is the day. Now, I can't tell you everything that happened in 20 minutes, but I can tell you a bit, right? I can talk to you about what I experienced, what we experienced as a whole, and I can share to you the wonders of being in a space where we are all speaking the same language. And the way it infuses even the staff and the other visitors on site. So when do we do this conference again in 2 years? Start saving your pennies and dimes and extra dollars now. Because when we do this again in 2 years, you're going to want to go. You're going to want to go. So the summer conference is every other year. And on opposite years, we have our conference. And this year or next year, it'll be in Reno in April. So if anybody wants to go to the conference in April, let's get together a group, right? There's group rates. We could do a travel train down there. It'll be really fun. I'll give you more information on that as I learn more. But today I'm going to talk about the summer retreat. We call it SOAR, as we are soaring. And as I mentioned before, the CSL summer retreat was in Banff. That's located in Alberta, Canada. And Banff is a national park that has been on my bucket list for a long time. So the opportunity came up a couple of years ago. We were going to go there. Then COVID. It didn't happen. So they put it off. And I was like, I'm still going to Banff. I'm going. So when this came along, I was like, one of the first people to sign up. I am not missing this opportunity. Not only that, but it's like a homecoming. You're meeting people you've never met before, but they're like family, right? They're like family. We had people there that had only been going to a local center for 6 months. And we had somebody there who had been in the teachings of Ernest Holmes for over 70 years. It was profound. And we were guided through a journey of revelation, restoration, and grace. So as I mentioned before, imagine a room filled with a couple hundred people, all studying the science of mind. As Ernest Holmes would say, anybody who studies the science of mind is a practitioner of the science of mind, right? And the feeling in that room, the feeling, as I shared before, it was like walking into this invisible love bubble. You know those childhood moments where you blew a soap bubble on your hand and you watched it float in the air? And it caught the sunlight, and you get little rainbows in it, and it's all in that fragile skin of that bubble, right? That's what it felt like. But instead of fragile, it was powerful. Instead of floating away, it surrounded us the entire time. So even when we left the rooms we were in for the main conference or the breakouts, it was still with us as we went out into town and as we went on nature walks and even in our individual rooms, it was still there. You ever walked into a room and felt an instant shift? Yeah, where you knew something sacred or wonderful was happening. That's what SOAR was like. That's where we just, it was powerful. And I want to bring that experience to you today because what we learned there was not meant to stay in Banff. It was meant to be lived here by us. So let's dive in. The very first thing we did is we had a native elder woman from the Saulteaux First Nation in Saskatchewan. I can say that, Saskatchewan. She shared about her work with intergenerational trauma in her community. Now, I'll tell you honestly, I thought I knew something about trauma. I've read books, I've studied psychology, I prayed with people at their hardest moments. I've experienced trauma in my own life. But the story, as she told the stories about how trauma can ripple through generations, grandparents to parents to children, I realized again how deeply connected we all are. See, pain doesn't just stop with one person, and healing doesn't either. We honored her, we honored her ancestors, and we honored the land because, friends, it matters where we stand. Spirit doesn't erase history, it transforms it through awareness, acknowledgement, and love. Oh, and then came the music. Oh, the music. The band from the Calgary Center for Spiritual Living lit up the entire room. 5 musicians. There were guitars, keyboards, drums, and voices that lifted us right out of our chairs. At one point, we were all up dancing with total abandon, and later, those same musicians drew us into silence with songs so tender that we all started to cry. It was beautiful. Music is spirit's language. What Dan provides for us is spirit's language, right? Think about the last time a song carried you through a hard day or reminded you of who you really are. That's revelation too. That's restoration. And that's grace disguised as melody. Our theme began with revelation. Revelation means to lay bare. I remembered in one afternoon during a workshop, we were asked to close our eyes and think about one belief that we were willing to lay bare, to bring it out of hiding. I thought, I'm good, I've done my work. Like anybody else ever think that? I've done my work, I don't have anything else. Yeah. What Spirit whispered to me, Eileen, you're still holding on to something, and revealed to me what it was that I needed to lay bare. It's not easy to admit, but that's what revelation is. Spirit laying it bare so I could see it, not to shame me, not to make me feel bad, but to free me from what I was hiding. I knew what it was. It's that voice that talks in the back of my mind that tells me I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not a boy, right? It's that word, that monkey mind. That's what that is, and that's what needed to be revealed. Dr. Seuss said, "Oh, the things you will find if you don't stay behind." And that's what revelation is. It's moving forward into the unknown so we can find the divine in new ways. See, revelation often feels uncomfortable, but it's in the discomfort. That's where the doorway to God is. What if instead of discomfort, we realize that Spirit's saying, come, let me show you what something new. Just trust me. So many people go into spiritual bypass. You know what that is? That's that, oh, everything's fine. Everything's good here. There's a meme that used to go around in the tech world where the dog is sitting there with his coffee in his hand and there's a fire all around him. He says, I'm fine, everything's fine. Right? That's bypass. That's bypass. Open your eyes and see what's really going on within you or around you, right? The dog needed to put down the coffee cup and get out of there, or pour the coffee on the fire to create a space to get out of there, right? It's not fine. Let me share a story. years ago, I was a practitioner of the day, and after service, somebody came to sit with me. And she said, Eileen, I feel like I'm carrying a 100-pound backpack. Life is hard. So I asked her, I said, what's inside your backpack? And this is what she said. She said, guilt, regret, and a list of everything I think I should have done differently. That's what revelation does. It opens the backpack. It says, take it out, look at it, lay it bare. Because only when we see what we're carrying can we set it down. Ladies, have you ever cleaned out your purse because it's too heavy? Gentlemen, have you ever cleaned out your backpack or whatever bag, your briefcase, because it's too heavy? And there's a bunch of stuff you don't need, right? And you reload it and it's much lighter. I do that with my toolbox, guys. Right? Carrying my toolbox. I'm like, why am I carrying all these things? When I go and I look at my toolbox and I think, why do I have this crap in here? Like, what were those screws or nails from? Or why do I have 3 screwdrivers and 2 hammers? Right? I have to unburden myself of all those extra things. Put them away. Put them away or release them. Give them away. Right? Release my thoughts into the law of mind, allowing the spirit to just recycle it into love. Into love. So at the retreat, we were reminded we can come from hate or we can come from love. Reverend Georgia Prescott, retired now, but Center for Spiritual Awareness, she would say, you are either coming from hate or you're coming from a place of love. The goal is to be standing in a place of love. Right? Now, hate doesn't always look like shouting or cruelty. Sometimes it's quieter. Sometimes it's the harsh way we talk to ourselves. Sometimes it's the way we withhold forgiveness from someone in our family or in our community. Sometimes it's scrolling social media with judgment in our hearts, right? But remember Ernest Holmes' words, God never fights with its opposite. If the divine doesn't fight, then why should we? Why should we? See, everything we do ripples outward. What we eat, where we shop, how we speak, what we think, all of it matters. You matter because you are not separate from the world. So I ask you, are you coming from love? Or are you using the language of love to disguise separation? Holmes says, love points the way and love makes the way possible. The law of cause and effect is just neutral. It will follow whatever pointer we give it. If our compass is fear, the law follows that. If our compass is love, the law follows that. So which compass are you handing the universe today? What direction do you want to go? Next came restoration, and Reverend Dr. Sunny Cantrell is the spiritual leader of Center for Spiritual Living internationally, worldwide. She is, if we were to have a pope, she is it. She is it. And she told us restoration begins with listening as a sacred act. It's a sacred act. And I'll tell you, how often do we really listen? Not just with our ears, but with our hearts. It takes a while to stop listening with our ears and listen with our heart. That's what meditation does for us. It allows us to get out of hearing here and to start hearing here. You know, at the retreat, I found myself sitting with someone I just met, and they shared a deep, deep story of loss. And my impulse was to respond with something that would make her feel better. Reach out and touch, hug. But instead, I remembered Dr. Sunny's words. I just listened. I didn't give advice. I just listened. And in that silence, something happened. The heaviness of the air lifted. Tears came, but so did relief. See, sometimes restoration doesn't come from fixing, it comes from deep listening. Reverend Sunny also said, don't waste your pain. I did that. I was like, wait, what? Don't waste your pain, she said. That line really hit me. How many times have we tried to shove our pain into a corner, to ignore it, to distract ourselves? Oh, no, I don't see it. I'm busy over here. But she reminded us that pain can be fuel. Pain can be fuel. Think of a seed buried deep down into the earth. The pressure of the soil doesn't destroy the seed, it cracks it open. It cracks it open so a new life can emerge. That's what pain could do for us. I once knew a man who lost his job suddenly. He was devastated. You know, he had a family to take care of and a mortgage and car payments and credit card bills and all of those things. But instead of letting the pain turn into bitterness, he used that energy to create the business he had always dreamed of. Today, he's thriving not in spite of the pain, but because he didn't waste it. He didn't waste it. Awareness of suffering doesn't create more suffering. That's a really big one to remember. Awareness of suffering does not create more suffering. It creates an opportunity for healing. When we notice something isn't working, that's spirit saying, here's where I can enter. Are you mad about something right now? Are you frustrated about something right now? Are you angry right now? Stop listening to what's in here and start listening to what's in your heart. And listen to what spirit has to tell you about this. That's the hard one, differentiating which is my head and which is my heart. I will tell you what your heart is. Your heart answers with love. You might listen to it and go, no, that's not it. Listen again. It'll repeat itself. Your heart will always answer from a place of love. Your head will answer from a place of reason or anger or frustration, but your heart is always love. Sometimes awareness starts small with just a simple prayer, a spiritual mind treatment, or an affirmation. This morning, as I was driving north up Highway 1, I kept saying, I love tourists. I love tourists. I love tourists. I have plenty of time. I'm going to collapse time into one. There is no past. There is no present. There is only now. I love the tourists. I love the tourists. Love the tourists. Right? I was doing my affirmation, and before long, I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. Relax. I mean, it's okay. It's a touristy weekend. People understand that. So I'll be a few minutes late. Relax. It's gonna be fine, right? Sometimes awareness starts by picking up the phone and just asking for help. Just asking for help. I had the opportunity to, some friends of mine came into town just for the day yesterday. And we went up, they have a friend that lives up here too, that they know from Santa Cruz. And they asked her where she lives, and she said she lives on Little River Airport Road. And my friend went, well, that's where our other friend lives. She said, oh, just tell her to come up to the woods. She'll know where it is. And we went to lunch and we were chit-chatting and, and she looked at me and she said, I need help with a project. Do you know anybody that can help me? And I went, what's the project? was something that I could do really easily. And I said, let's talk. I can help you with that. She just asked for help. Do I know anybody? Yeah. Come on, I'll make a new friend, right? I totally do this for you. That's what it is. She asked for help. It's just starts by simply saying, God, I'm willing. I've told you before, my mother would go out in the backyard when she was frustrated. She was well, this was mostly when she was a junior high school science teacher. And she'd walk out at the end of her day and throw her hands up in the air and say, God, I'm done. Take this away. I'm willing to let this frustration and anger go. It wasn't at the kids, it was at the parents. But, right? You get it. It was just being willing. Just being willing to turn it over. See, awareness paired with love, that's the beginning of restoration. And finally, grace, that ever-present principle. Grace is not something we earn. It's not something that appears when we finally get it right. Grace is a permanent spiritual principle. At the conference, someone described grace as God's safety net. Even when we fall, we land in grace. And I thought, yeah, that's true. Grace is the current of the divine love that never stops flowing. Let me share with you this. Years ago, I made a decision that didn't work out the way I had hoped. I was embarrassed. I was even ashamed. But in the quiet afterward, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Spirit whispered, you are still loved. You are still whole. That was grace. Not because I earned it, but because it's always here. Grace is Spirit's way of saying, beloved, you can never fall out of my arms. I am always holding. So here we are, friends, revelation, restoration, and grace. Revelation asks us to lay bare what is hidden. Restoration invites us to listen deeply and not waste our pain. And grace reminds us that love is always here, whether or not we feel worthy. So as we leave today, I want you to remember this. That love bubble that we felt at the summer conference isn't confined to Banff. It's here in this room. It's here in your heart. And when we practice revelation, restoration, and grace, we are soaring in love. So I'm going to invite you to turn within, to rest in the stillness of this moment as I do our closing prayer. I know that there is one life, one love, one infinite present that is the source and substance of all creation. It's the breath we breathe, the ground we stand on, the beating of our hearts. It is love. It is wholeness. And it is grace itself. And I know that this present is not outside of us. It is the very essence of who we are. Each one here is a divine expression of spirit, living and moving in the flow of revelation, restoration, and grace. And so I speak my word now, knowing revelation is alive in us. I declare that anything hidden is gently laid bare to the light of truth. Old stories, limiting beliefs, anything that no longer serves us dissolves in the presence of divine awareness. We see clearly, we see truthfully, we see God in all that there is. I know that restoration is ours. Every place where there has been pain, Spirit is present as healing and as renewal. I affirm that we do not waste our pain, but allow it to be transformed into wisdom, compassion, and strength. We deeply to ourselves, to each other, to spirit. And in our listening, we allow wholeness to be revealed. I know that grace is the foundation of our being. Grace is the everlasting gift of the divine, always present, never earned, never withdrawn. Grace lifts us when we stumble, comforts us when we forget, and reminds us always we are loved, we are whole, and we are enough. And so I claim for each one of us soaring through life, carried on the wings of love as we walk through this week, we walk in revelation, restoration, and grace. We bless our families, our community, our world simply by being the love that we are. I'm so very grateful. Grateful for the truth that's revealed, grateful for the healing at hand, grateful for the grace that never ends. And so I release this word into the law of mind, knowing that it is already done, that it is already so. And together we say, and so it is.